And we've got some questions here in the chat, so I'll start with those. And then from there, if you have additional questions, feel free to use the raise your hand icon, and I can unmute folks to speak directly. So the first question, Keith, is for you. For the full closure, does that mean that there will be detours around those streets with the full closure, so there will be no traffic at all? And will this impact sidewalks for pedestrian traffic during this time as well?
Yeah, so the full closures apply South 3rd at Wells and Williams, and a half closure applies at South 2nd at Wells and Williams. And yes, that means that during that time, no traffic could go through the intersection, vehicular traffic. So there would be detour signage to go around the block. And for businesses that are on the block, right adjacent to the closure, we would intend to make 4 cul-de-sacs. So you could drive right up to the intersection closure, and it would become a cul-de-sac and a 2-way road, and you could go back out. That's where those signs would apply. If for my fault, I'm going to use yours for example. We would have a sign that says Boom Boona open. You go all the way to the intersection, and then you'd have to do a U-turn and exit back out. That is the intent of full closure. Does it affect the pedestrian traffic? Actually, no, it would not, because by that time we would have already constructed the 4 corners, the new sidewalk, and so that would be happening a couple months before the 7-day closure. For each corner that we work on, then you would have to have pedestrian detours that would say, you know, that corner is closed, you need to cross the street the other way. And that is where I'm going to kind of go right into the second question there, in that how do we rebuild sidewalk right up literally to a business's front door? That is where we will want to communicate with you directly. The intent is, if you had one day that you weren't open, that would be enough for us. We can get sidewalk ripped out and redone in a day. We might have to possibly even go down to rip it out overnight maybe, or while you're not open, put down some temporary to allow access in and out of the business. And then the next time your business closed, we pour the concrete, and the concrete that we use sets up in about 4 hours. So this is where that individual coordination with each business is going to apply. I know some businesses, they might have two doors. They might be willing to use that second door for the short time we're working on their main front door, for example. Hopefully that answers that question. Do you want me to keep going, Mario?
I was going to say we had another question related to the intersection closures, which is how long do you anticipate the full closures on 3rd will take, and from which cross streets to which cross streets? So just to reiterate those pieces, Keith.
Okay. So let's take example the intersection of 3rd and Williams. It would be actually just the piece of pavement in the middle of the intersection, almost in middle of the 4 crosswalks. So that we anticipate 7 days. And so it's not really from a cross street to a cross street. It's literally right at the dot there. And even pedestrians could walk around it. It's just cars cannot go through it. Right above that, how many days in advance of construction, possible business disruption will you contact the business? To be honest, 3 months. We are looking and getting out there this month through June, and a lot of the impacts we're talking about might not be till September or October. So we intend to be, I'm going to say 3 months, business disruption with regards to work in the intersection or at your front door in the sidewalk. Ron pointed out a different business disruption. If by chance your water needs to be reconnected, that is often done. Well, Ron, you want to talk about that? But it's normally like maybe from 4 to 7 in the morning when you're not open and you don't even know that it happened. And
Yeah,
that coordination usually happens 3 days in advance. Go ahead, Don.
yeah. So, and you know, we want to give businesses as much notice as possible, and you know, a week if possible. It really depends on the scheduling, but what we try to do is do that work when early in the morning before businesses are open, or at a time that to minimize any impact to businesses. And usually those type of things, to transfer a service line, it doesn't take very long. They'll get it all prepped to go, and they shut down the one and connect the other, and it's usually not a very long period, you know, less than an hour time of a shutdown. But it can vary depending on what exactly is happening. So and you know, and I just want to add on to what Keith, you know, for our utility project, you know, we're still in the design process. We have our website set up. We'll keep information, and we'll also be doing more outreach with all the businesses as we get closer to starting construction. We'll be doing something similar to what Keith is doing here, and to, you know, get everybody up to speed and know what's happening, where we are, and what the contractor schedule is, because we really don't know where exactly the contractor will start yet. That we have to get a contractor on board, and we have some ideas, but it's really up to the contractor to decide that. So once we get that kind of information, we will definitely make sure everybody and all the businesses and property owners down there are aware of where work will start, and what the plan is for the overall project.
And so we just got another question that kind of ties into this notice and timeline perspective, in terms just the unpredictability that exists in construction. And so in terms of that 3-month advance notice you spoke to, Keith, does that mean you will give an exact date that a business can plan on in terms of when those impacts will happen in front of them?
Eventually, right now we can't give that, and I'm going to caveat that with two. So if it's a sidewalk work going on in front of your building, we'll probably be able to narrow down that date several months in advance. But there does need to be some flexibility, but we wouldn't move that without coordination. The full 7-day closure of an intersection, that could be a little bit more weather dependent because of the base underneath that road. You really can't afford it to get soaked in a storm while it's open. And that's where we have to work with our city council, because they approve these closures. And we have interpretation from the city attorney, rightfully so, regarding this ordinance requirement, that we can't just tell you we're going to do it sometime in the next year. We have to be more specific, and we're still going over our contractor's 12-month schedule. So the 3-month advance notice is it's not advance notice of the exact date. It's we will start contacting and coordinating with these businesses 3 months before it's actually going to happen. And as we get closer, the date does come down. So yeah, we can't be exact on that. So we'll forgive your skepticism.
Great. Next question. This is for you, Ron. Our group has been waiting for the storm and sewer upgrades to be completed to build a 100-unit, 6-story building on the corner of 3rd and South Morris, the former Salvation Army building. Can you elaborate on a couple timeline issues? The first question is, when will the full project be completed? And secondarily, are there provisions to attach to the storm and sewer before completion of the entire project?
So as I mentioned, you know, our construction, we're aiming for mid-September to start construction, and it'll be 18 months. So you know, we're all this year and next year, and a little bit into 2022 probably is the full duration. But until we get a contractor on board and know exactly what their schedule is, that's what we're working with. So I guess I'm trying to understand if the question is connecting to the existing storm and sewers before completing the entire project. So if you're doing a project now and you need to connect to our utility systems and we haven't replaced them yet, yes, you will be able to connect to them. Obviously, when we construct our new improvements, then we would have to, especially for the water and maybe sewer, if there's already connections to the system, we would have to transfer those connections at that time. Insofar as your new construction occurs after we have the improvements made and they are active in terms of that they've been completed to the point where we can have them in service, then yes, you could connect to the new systems. And I think one of the things we definitely want to do with you is to, on that project, would be to, and we know through our community economic development department in a development engineering that we're involved in the review of plans for new construction. So we'd want to coordinate our improvements and any connections to our systems with where your service connections are planned for that project. So that's something we'd want to definitely be coordinating with you as part of your development permitting process and you know, our contractor when we get to the point where your connection would be. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Ron. An additional question for you, which is, do you anticipate additional storm and sewer charges for developers in excess of what we already anticipate from King County and the city of Renton?
We haven't planned anything in addition to what we normally would be charging new construction for connection charges and so forth. We're not planning to do we haven't decided, but it's because it's mostly infrastructure replacement. We're not planning to do it like a latecomers agreement. Then if somebody connects, they got to pay for some portion of the cost. Again, this is really to replace our aging infrastructure as well as our, some of it is undersized mainly in the water system, but for the most part we're just replacing existing systems, and we're making sure that the new systems have the capacity that's needed to serve the land use that's planned in the downtown for fire flow, sewer service, and for stormwater runoff in the street and from the adjacent properties. So no, we are not planning anything additional.
Great, thank you. There's a question if we can propose that there be a weekly meeting to discuss, provide overview of what will happen the following week so we can prepare and update our guests.
I have a question for both you and Mario. Specifically, not quite sure who our guests are, but through our Enviro Issues public outreach firm here, we can certainly set up weekly meetings with businesses or property owners that want to get a specific weekly update as it relates to their business. So I can see that, yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think the idea would, and especially behind the websites, our plan would be to provide a kind of an update, at least a 2 to 3 week look ahead from the contractor on the website, so that anyone can go and see what's going to be happening in the next 2 to 3 weeks. That's, of course, as we mentioned, things can change with time. If there's a problem encountered or we have bad weather, even the contractor can't work, that changes schedules. But the idea is to try to have some information on our website so that you can go and see, okay, where's the contractor going to be working next week? Is it close to my building or not? And it's going to be a little bit dynamic. There's going to be a lot of different things happening. The contractor may be laying pipe and doing other things, like on Keith's project, doing sidewalks in one place and laying pipe in another street. So it's going to be a little bit, the contractor would be working in various locations on the project. But again, we're going to try to have as much information so people know what's happening and what's going to be happening on our web pages, and then of course, through the email or phone line, you can you call and get an updated information as needed.
Yeah, Ron, on the Wells and Williams project website, we do have our 3-week construction look ahead schedule being put up every week by our admin, Joey. I have to admit, sometimes those schedules are hard to make sense of from a non-contractor, and so, maybe after that, then contact us through the hotline, and we could even set up a standing weekly meeting, or maybe it's just even a weekly phone call for a business owner that wants to be contacted every week about a specific location. So again, that's why we have our public outreach firm helping us.
Yep, exactly. Happy to balance making sure you guys have the information you need in a timely fashion, but also don't feel flooded and overwhelmed by communications as well. Especially as we get to the intersection closures and impacts, we definitely recognize that we'll need to be doing much more frequent outreach for businesses, since the impacts will be more significant at that time. Another question we had, sorry, I'm scrolling here, is do you anticipate requiring 12 feet wide sidewalks along South 2nd from Main to Shattuck?
That question is for me. That 12-foot wide sidewalk requirement is in the city code. If there's any future development, the Wells and Williams project is actually only rebuilding the sidewalk at the 4 intersections so that we can put in the new traffic signal and that we can make sure that the new intersection meets ADA requirements, wheelchair requirements. And again, the way we're doing that is we're not building ramps. Wheelchairs don't go up and down. Cars will go up and back down over the intersection. So we are actually not touching the sidewalk along South 2nd from Main to Shattuck. In the future, so this is 5 to 8 years out, South 2nd Street is going to be converted from one-way operation to two-way operation. That project design has not even started yet, and so I am unable to tell you what the sidewalk will look like at that time. Often, if you need 12-foot sidewalks, as you know, you can either go back a sidewalk, and we have a lot of buildings that are right at the back of the sidewalk, so then you'd have to go the other direction to get your 12 feet that gets into the traveled lanes. You'd have to take away from the traveled lanes, and anytime you start moving the curb for more sidewalks, all the storm drain and drains along the curb end up having to be worked on too. So right now the answer is no.
Thanks, Keith. Our next question is related to the outreach for this meeting and whether or not just downtown core businesses were invited or businesses further down South 2nd towards Rainier. This meeting was definitely prioritized towards the activities that are happening right now, so the downtown core businesses. However, it did go out on the project listserv to, I'm not going to misspeak to how many are on that at the moment, but to everybody there so that it was open as well. But the goal for the later work is that this June meeting will really go into a lot more detail there. And have some robust outreach with mailers and other things like that.
So Mario, I'm looking at the questions, and the question about no water, no business for especially restaurants 24 to 48 hours is not sufficient amount of time. So how long would businesses not have any water services? I think we might maybe address that, but I'm just kind of trying to say, if it was a restaurant, Ron, for example, we'd first be looking for if there's any days that they're closed, and if not, what are their hours, not just if they're open, but, I know donut shops open like at midnight, right? So you can't, so we would be looking, the water department schedules that with them, and they really come in and say, when can the water be turned off? If it's literally from 9 p.m. to midnight, if you're an early morning restaurant, we would find a few hours somewhere in there. Ron, would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, you know, absolutely, and especially if we can find a time when the it wouldn't have any impact to a business. That's the time we would pick, and before the opening time, and or if at night or late afternoon is a good time. So that's something you know we're going to want to definitely get some information and work with all the businesses about when that does have to happen. Our water utility maintenance division will typically do the service transfers, and you know there will be coordination and timings, you know, work done before that happens, and you know, well coordinated with all the businesses.
Those water utility crews, when they do some of those water cutovers, there's some odd times that they're out there doing those, right, Ron?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
When our water utility crews do those cutovers, I'm sure over history there's been some really weird times that they've had to do those.
Oh yes, I mean there's, you know, in terms of it's just not in the middle of the day. You know, we like I said we do try to keep it so it's off hours, and we've even done it at night when we've had some large office, the twin towers, the tower,
Titan towers.
the Titan
Titan.
buildings there. One time we had to do a transfer there, and we did it when, you know, nobody late at night, so no one was impacted. So that's something we'll definitely want to get an understanding of what everybody's business hours are, and try to find the right time to do that transfer so that you know there is no interruption.
I mean, if there was a business that's truly 24 hours, then we would have to identify it, period. So we, on the Second and Main project, cut over the water to the fire stations there. Well, you know, fire stations they're around the clock, and all the fire department are in there, and we had to basically say, okay, the water is going to be off. When do you want it off? And we worked with them on that. So.
Yeah, and again, the idea is the transfer. Everything could be trenched in the pipe, and it's just a matter of cutting one at the meter, you know, removing one from the meter and putting a new service connection to the meter, depending on how big it is. And that some of these could be fairly big because of the building. So, you know, it's something we could do where we get everything ready to go, and it's just that last little bit of switching to the new system, and it could be done.
How long, Ron? 2 or 3 hours?
Yeah, I'm unfortunately I don't have my water utility engineer here I'd really like to have him weigh in on that to say more specifically, but I think an hour to 2 hours at the most, but again it might even be less than that. So I think that's something we'll get an answer for that. And again, it's probably not a one size fits all answer, though. It kind of depends on how big of a service line the building has. Sometimes they could be as much as a 6-inch service line, or a 4-inch, and depending on if you have sprinklers and so forth. So that's it can vary, is what I'm saying. But we'll do everything we can to try to minimize any outage of water to any of the buildings, because it's really important you keep it, especially from a fire protection standpoint, if you have sprinklers and so forth.
Thanks, Ron. So one distinction that I will make that's more for the early stages of the Wells-Williams conversion project is, as Keith mentioned earlier, there are the franchise utilities like Comcast and like PSE that are out there doing relocations. And for those, we're not currently anticipating any significant breaks in service. But those franchise utilities will be handling communications themselves directly to businesses and anybody who is impacted, just to make sure that you guys are getting the latest and greatest information on that and getting it quickly, and we're not a bottleneck in that. So it's just a distinction to make, particularly as the franchise utility work is live and active.
Yeah, and typically when they do phone, cable, gas, and power, they're able to do that without any disruptions. But you're correct, Mario. They would contact the customer directly.
So our next question is, are you anticipating any delays due to non-essential businesses not being able to supply construction materials?
And the answer from my project is yes. We've actually already been a little slow getting off the ground here in the last couple of weeks due to there was just paperwork that was a little harder to get because everybody's trying to work out of their homes. There was the COVID-19 operating requirements that one of our subcontractor couldn't meet without a day or two delay. On the other hand, we have some critical supplies that usually take a long time to get, like 6 months to 9 months for traffic signal poles. And our suppliers have indicated that they do not anticipate any delays, and that's some of the equipment that we were just assuming would be delayed. So working with contractors, you have the ability to hold them to their schedule and charge them if they don't make their schedule. But you also have the ability to partner up with the contractor, and when there's this situation and they say it's going to take us a few more days, that you can grant them those days without charging them. Our contract is currently 250 working days, which actually translates into exactly 365 calendar days. We already anticipate adding 5 to 10 days onto that, but I don't know if that will influence the very end of the project or not. In fact, maybe this will be a good time for me to touch on what I didn't touch on. Is we talked about the utilities work in second and third going through summer, and then this 4 intersection, 16 corners, 4 intersections, August through December. After that, we are going to pave the 4 blocks between the 4 intersections, so we have a nice looking downtown when we're done, nice new pavement. And then we would also, of course, switch all the striping and the signage over to the 2-way operation. And that will take us through likely March of next year. And then I'll back up even further, or not back up, but maybe something else I should have mentioned. When we're done with the South 2nd and South 3rd Street utility work and start going into those intersections, it's just too hard to work on those intersections and keep the existing traffic signals working because you've got to excavate and you'll end up cutting wires. So we're anticipating basically turning those 4 signals off, removing them, and have these 4 intersections operating as all-way stop signs. From a traffic standpoint, we do not feel that it's going to impact traffic maneuvering and getting around in the city. If you're from Seattle and trying to get to Bellevue and you're trying to cut through downtown Renton, you may choose those stop signs. You may decide to stay on the freeway or something for that matter. But so that's some of what's going to be happening. Boy, did I digress from the question of construction delays due to non-essential businesses. There likely will be a little bit, not significant enough that it really will be evident to anybody other than us who are keeping track of the paperwork.
Thanks, Keith. Additional question is, if a business needs to close due to this construction, will there be a mitigation fund to offset any potential loss of revenue as a result?
Yeah, I'll answer that, Ron. And Ron says, yeah, go ahead, Keith, you answer that one, and then you can follow up on it. The answer is no. This project has federal funds in it, which do not allow you to compensate for lost revenue or lost business. Now, on the flip side, I would say if we do our project correctly, no business will need to close due to this construction. We are intending to never impact business hours. And we're attempting to minimize the impacts. Granted, I do understand that everybody does. Construction is going to impact. We're trying to get in and out and get it done. This has been a project the city's been wanting to do for a number of years, and we're needing to do it. But you know, I almost feel like I need my city attorney here because I'm not a legal person, but it's my understanding that mitigation funds for potential offset of potential loss of revenue is not allowed on a city project. Ron, how did I do?
Yeah, I mean, Keith is right in terms of our approach is to try to work in a way that, you know, businesses can stay open. I mean, obviously, we know with construction, it's might be a deterrent to some people wanting to stop someplace, but our goal is to work in a way and coordinate with everybody as much as possible to the extent possible to minimize, you know, the impact to the business. And you know, there isn't a plan for any mitigation fund. It's you know, a public project, and it's in the end it's going to be a very significant improvement in the downtown, and it will add value to all the properties down there. And our overall goal, as we mentioned earlier, was with the conversion of Wells Williams, and then eventually second and third, we want to create a more vibrant, walkable community down there that people want to come down and go shopping, go to restaurants, go look at the artwork we're doing, and try to make this a place where people want to come. And there's going to be a little, you know, for these to get to where we want, it's going to require some work that's going to be interrupt businesses, but in the long run, we hope that this will help facilitate and make it more vibrant in the long run.
Great, thank you guys. Do either of the projects at this point anticipate requesting a variance to allow for 24-hour construction or extended hour construction?
At this time, Wells and Williams does not. We allow our contractor to work 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. To be honest, a public works project is not required to request a variance, but in terms of public outreach and public perception, we would still go to city council, whether it's the whole council or transportation committee, and get approval before we did any type of 24-hour construction. There is a possibility when we get into those intersection work where we possibly could reduce the length or duration of the closure by doing some type of 24-hour construction. I don't know if that's possible, but so there's a possibility. I don't know if I would term it something different than a variance, because our public works project is, I don't think, is required to get a variance, so we would coordinate with the council. Ron?
Yeah, you know, usually we don't like working at night because it's going to cost us more money. It's not as safe for the workers because they're out there at night and traffic's still out there. And the other problem we have with, you know, working late at night is if there's a problem, then you've got an even bigger problem because people like our maintenance division, they're not around. If we had to have people come down to do something, you can't get supplies at night. So it's a little more difficult. It's something we only do if we absolutely have to. There is on our downtown utility project to the very west, we are crossing Rainier Avenue, doing some work in Rainier Avenue, the intersection of South 3rd and Rainier. And that work will likely either happen like at night, late evening, or over a weekend maybe. We haven't really determined that, but because of how busy Rainier Avenue is in South 3rd and you know, Sunset Boulevard there is, you know, we're anticipating having to do some work. We won't be able to work during the normal working hours just because of the volume of traffic, how disruptive that would be. So we're looking at possibly doing some nighttime work there, but it wouldn't be 24 hours. And, you know, we can work until 10 p.m. at night before you need a noise variance. So That would be the first thing we would do, is try to do the work so we can on a weekend and then work to 10 p.m. so we don't have to have a noise variance and impact people who are residing close by us out there working in the middle of the night when people are trying to sleep.
And if I could add to that, yes, the concern there is the residents, and we would take kind of the same approach with outreach. Once we identified when we would be working, maybe an overnight or two, I have had to do this on other projects. We will go door to door and do mailings and contact. And generally what we found is that people have been notified and told that it's either one or two nights, and they understand why, they generally go, okay, I can live with that. I know what's coming, and we can do small things like recommend, earplugs or that nature. But it's generally, if it's something unexpected, and then all of a sudden they're woken up in the middle of the night, we haven't done our outreach job, and we'll hear about it.
And if we did have to work at night, there's other things we can do with the contractor in terms of noise mitigation to, ambient backup beepers. So you know how loud the beepers are when trucks are backing up. There's a sensor they can have on them so that they're only as loud as they need to be based upon the background noise level, as well as padded truck bed, gravel truck beds. So when you dump a material, it doesn't make a big bang when they're putting backfill or excavated material into the back of a truck. So there's other things we can do, but like I said, other than the work that we have in our downtown utility project over on 3rd and Rainier at that intersection, we aren't planning to have any nighttime work. We're planning to do the work in the same working hours that Keith's project is, the Wells Williams project is planning, from 7 to 5 p.m.
Great. Well, recognizing time, I just want to open it up for additional questions. And also, I don't think we have anybody who's just on the phone, but just in case, if you are, know that *6 is what you can push to unmute yourself if you wanted to do a question and you are on the phone only. And feel free, if you have additional questions, to either type them in or raise your hand, and we can also unmute you as well. In the meantime, I'll read this last comment from Chamber of Commerce. We love the idea this will help benefit businesses in the long run, and would agree. We thank the city and appreciate the sensitivity to the fact most of these businesses are just experiencing a devastating loss through this pandemic, which is why there's concern for any of the impacts this is going to place upon businesses in the short term as they are facing recovery, and we are doing all we can to support them through these next few months so that they can sustain to be a part of how great things will be when these projects are completed.
Well, that's our goal here, is to make these improvements and make the downtown even better than it is. It's a great downtown now. We want to even make it better with what we're doing, and in combination with our economic and community economic development department and our community services department in the whole city is to help make our city, and especially in our downtown area, become more than what it is now. And it's a great place now. Is we want to see it be more vibrant, make it more pedestrian friendly, and aesthetically pleasing, and a place where people want to come.
So Ron and I both work for the Public Works Department, but yes, definitely thank you to the Community and Economic Development Department for all of the assistance in helping us in our maintaining the relationships with the businesses and residents downtown. Thank you.
Well, I'm not seeing any additional questions, but as a reminder, if you do have questions later on, both projects have their emails as well as the phone numbers that you can call to get additional information. Again, really encourage folks to sign up for the project listserv so that you do have the latest information Additionally, last week we did call 195 downtown businesses just to try and make sure we're getting the word out there, but feel free to forward information. And if you have other ideas on how we can be more effectively getting the word out there, we're always happy to collaborate on that as well, because we know everybody has unique needs and preferences and want to make sure that the information is known. So thank you guys all very much. Keith and Ron, any closing thoughts on your end?
Well, the only thing I just want to say, I want to say thank you for everyone joining us on this. I know this is, you know, it's going to be disruptive, but in the long run, it's going to be good for our city and for all the businesses. And we just want to commit to you that we're going to work as best we can with you to try to minimize the impacts of what we're doing, and from a construction standpoint, and we're in coordination and in our teamwork with our community economic development department, you know, work to make sure people know that you're open for business, and and continue to encourage people to come to the downtown, even though we're doing construction as much as we can, so to minimize the effect of our work.
I was just going to say, enjoy the weather this weekend.
It should be beautiful. Well, thank you guys all very much. Again, really appreciate your time, because we know you guys are juggling a lot at the moment as well. So thank you, and we will post both the recording and the slides up on the websites, so that you can reference those at later dates. But in the meantime, thank you all.
Thank you very much.